Hello, everyone. How are you guys? I'm Diego Lainez at Dare to Learn podcast, and I'm very proud and I'm very excited about the interview we're gonna have today because you have heard me a lot telling you go and meet your heroes. This is one of those episodes because I'm here with Francesco Cirillo. Thank you, Francesco, for being here. Thank you for being part of the Dare to Learn
Thank
podcast.
thank you, Diego, for having me here.
It's 7 a.m. In the morning for me. It's around 2 o'clock, I guess, for Francesco in Berlin. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. And let me say hi to all your audience.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm pretty sure I have talked to them so much about the Pomodoro technique that by now they probably know who you are. But in any case, I just told them in the introduction to this episode, and I want to jump right away into some of the common questions we do to all our guests here, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Francesco, this podcast is about learning, but it's amazing how many things about learning we don't know yet, we don't understand, we don't apply, or we are confused about. And you being a book author, a creator of one of the most important time management tools in the world, and I'm pretty sure a very infinite learner yourself. What is something about learning that you believe it's clearer to you, or that it's very clear to you and not so clear to other people? What will be something about that?
I don't know if it is not clear to other people. I think that something which is really important. So there are two things. I think this is for me. I cannot say that this is not known or something. But one aspect is the incrementality.
Okay.
So to learn means to learn a little bit at a time. So to manage to get some value, a little bit of value at a time. And this, of course, is more motivating, as requires less effort, and in order to get to the final result, the effort you have to make is less than otherwise to having to deal with the whole complexity of something which is really really difficult or really complicated. So it's like an exploration. This is the first thing. This is, of course, not so easy. Okay. The Pomodoro technique can help you here because if there's a deadline, we don't want to go step by step. We don't want to spend time to even to identify the steps. So this is one of those aspects which is a little bit interesting. The other aspect is a relational aspect.
Okay.
So we learn more if, for instance, we learn together with other people.
Okay.
The more channels we use, the easier it is to learn. So if we not only learn, let's say, in order to repeat the things we understand and etc., but we also write and we exchange these ideas with other people. These relational channels, they reinforce our learning. So I always prefer not to study or to learn alone.
All right.
Okay, but it's always better to involve someone who has the same interests, for instance, or even if you can do this remotely. This is not a big problem, but not alone. Apart if you have this kind of minds, really, this pathological minds, we have two different personalities at the same time. But apart from this case, I would say it's better to talk to other people and learn with other people. These, I think, are two aspects that can actually favor a really good understanding and learning and application of what you learn.
That's great. That's great. I love it. I love it. And I think, yeah, we are. I was reading the other day about how now that we are getting the chance to be back together again in person, we are these business models are rely only on self-paced learning are being challenged because people is used to and loves to learn with others. So it's something that we are wired to do, right? Also,
But we are relational animals, if you
animals,
like,
animals, yeah, mammals. All right, all right. Thank you, thank you. And in the same line, and then we will I will ask you about a little bit about yourself and tell us about your life. But what is something about time, time management, let's say, or time related that it's not so understood by many, or that you think not everybody gets it, or even maybe the question will be, what do we get wrong about time? Maybe sometimes it's the opposite to that, what pops
Well,
an
again,
answer.
I cannot speak. So in general, I don't know, but
Yes.
there's a point that is, I think it's a key point. So usually, my experience is myself and the people I mentor, the people who attend my courses, etc. We all share something, and the thing that we share is that time generates anxiety.
Okay.
There's a moment where, imagine there's a deadline, and you don't see you manage to advance so quickly or as you expected, and there's always a moment where you say, I should have started before, I will never make it.
Yes.
Well, so this is in my view, this is the moment where I imagine I have this predator behind me chasing me, no? Because the level of fear is really like that. And I also gave it a name to this
Oh
guy.
yeah.
I call it Dino, like a dinosaur.
Yeah. All right, all right.
So the thing that I think it is really important to get is that time itself is not dangerous, is not scary. Everything happens in our mind. And actually, the Pomodoro technique, the really core of the Pomodoro technique, is to ask this vicious predator a question. And the question is, how you time that seems so scary in this very moment, can you help me now? So, which basically means, how can I spend time now that time seems to so scary in order to be effective?
Mm.
And if you take a look at the Pomodoro technique, actually, all the practices in the Pomodoro technique are based on this idea.
All right.
For instance, every 25 minutes, Dino shows up because I said, what do you want to do, Francesco? You want to stop now? With all the things you have to do? You want to stop?
That's true.
But actually, this is one of those moments where exactly where time is so, no, so the pressure of time is so high. You ask time, how can you help me? And actually, the answer is time can help you because you can spend this time to let your mind now favor this process where your mind actually reorganizes the information it has acquired over the last 25 minutes. And then, of course, when you start the next 25 minutes, you can solve problems easy in an easier way. And this is the same effect that everybody has experienced, at least one. You have a big problem, you go to sleep, and when you wake up, magically you solve the problem.
That's
It's
true.
not magically.
It's
This
not
is how our
magic.
mind works. So
Yeah.
our mind runs this process and reorganizes the information it has acquired. And of course, it seems easier to solve the problem because now you find all the dishes in the right place, and the the other thing, the books in the other place are in the
Yeah.
right places. So it's easy to say, oh, now I can see the solution. So this is, I think, this is the point. So um, time itself is not negative. Um, Everything happens in our mind.
That's
So if we
interesting.
manage to make this process, so to be aware of this process, we can control this process, and this is actually the key, I think.
All right. I love it. I love it. And of course, I'm going to ask you to tell us more about the Pomodoro and a little bit to break it down for those oblivious that haven't heard of it, but in
Okay,
studying.
here, Diego, I have to be honest.
Yes.
There are two versions of the Pomodoro technique.
All
Okay,
right.
there is the internet version, and there is
The real
there is
version.
my version.
All
So
right.
I will start with the internet version. So
Uh,
the thing, if you go on the internet, you read a blog post. Of course, you read something which is okay. You have to set a timer. The timer is a kitchen timer, set
Yeah.
to this magical 25 minutes. You work. You protect your Pomodoro. Actually, there's a way to deal with interruption, which is the really key of of this particular process. And then after this 25 minutes, you take a 2 to 5 minute break. And again, this is not really a break because we are letting our mind process, because we are not machines. So we have to read the instruction manual of our mind.
I like
Okay.
that
And the
analogy.
instruction manual of our mind says, hey, you can't work as much as you want. Okay.
All right.
And then after four pomodoro, this kind of rhythm, you take a longer break. I think this is the thing you read on any one of the thousands blog posts on the internet, etc. And I'm okay with this.
All
But
right.
this actually doesn't even partially describes what in the technique actually is the Pomodoro core process.
All right.
So,
Let's go. Let's jump right into that.
so in the Pomodoro technique, there are different processes, and processes means, of course, you have a process and you have a tool. The first process is the process with Dino. This is the most important one. This is an internal process because, of course, nobody can see this process going on, but
Yeah.
you can control this process. And this is the internal process. So the way to ask, how can time help me now? Okay. And of course, we have several different solutions. And then we have the core process. The core process, this is the first very step everybody want to do, to learn to work in a focused way, with a good relationship with time on a single task. This is the very first thing we have to learn to do. If we are not good at doing this, it's impossible to create daily planning, weekly planning, etc. Because if you are not good at working in a focused way on a single task, that's a really basis. So
All
the
right.
Pomodoro Core process is exactly the process that allows you. So the goal of this process is to get to the point where you have a good relationship with time, so you don't feel anxiety, or you feel less anxiety, and you can work dealing with interruptions, especially the internal interruptions. Internal interruptions are the moments where you say, I need to order pizza, I need to update my social description or something. So, and the core process teaches us how to deal with these things in a gentle way. Because the key point is that these interruptions comes from our mind, and our mind wants to protect us. So procrastination is a way our mind uses in order to say, oh, in this place here, I feel a really high level of anxiety. So let's take this poor person here and move it somewhere else. And of course, to move you somewhere else, your mind knows you really well. And so sometimes, if you're an ambitious person, your mind will say, why are you working on this project? You should work on the other project. Or
That's
why? You see, it depends on your mind knows you. I mean,
yeah. That's true. That's true.
and you cannot trick your mind. So there's no way to trick your mind. So this is the reason why you want to be gentle with your mind. So when your mind suggests to do something like ordering pizza or something, maybe you need that pizza, maybe you don't need this pizza, but you welcome this request. And then in the core process, you promise, I will deal with this request, not now because I want to finish working on these things, but when the next Pomodoro starts, I will take a look at the so-called unplanned card. And on the unplanned card, I will decide if I really have to order pizza or if I have to keep on working on the task, on the main task I have. Chances are, after the end of the Pomodoro, the need for pizza disappears. But
Yes.
if it doesn't disappear, then you see, this is a really gentle and a fair way to deal with your mind.
So yes, what you are trying to make the habit, or trying to get your mind used to be a little bit patient, because you're gonna treat your emotion, you're gonna treat your
The
anxiety.
way I like to say this is we develop a relationship with our mind.
I love that. All right.
This is the way. Our mind sends us messages. Imagine, for instance, there are cases where I am continuously interrupted by any reason. There are pomodoros where I have 9 interruptions, 9 internal interruptions. I learned that when this happens, either I need a long break, you see,
Yeah.
or I need to spend 1 or 2 pomodoros to simplify the thing I've been working on.
Okay.
So, for instance, if I'm working on a report, a chapter, whatever it is, when this happens, I learned that it's better to stop and take a look. Instead of writing the next paragraph, going back, read everything, and simplify what I have, or try to understand better what I have. You see, this is another of those cases where time can be really helpful. It's exactly in the moment where time is so full of anxiety, gives us so much anxiety. We can use time to be more effective. But it's not the primitive reaction. The primitive reaction is run, keep working, no breaks. You see, this is the primitive reaction. But if we control the process, this is the internal process, then we can say, no, I know that it's better to spend 1 pomodoro to review what I've done instead of adding something which maybe makes the thing more complicated.
Yes, I mean the pomodoro could be a planning pomodoro, a strategy pomodoro, or
sometimes you do this. Yes,
and something that came to my mind that I used to do. I still do it. Is that I always have a piece of pen and paper, you know, a piece of paper. So for when the distraction comes, I write it down, and it stops bothering me for the time of the pomodoro. By
in
the
the
end,
core process, this
yes.
thing is the unplanned card. And then, of course, we have the other process. You see, usually people know a part of the core process. Now, the part which is, of course, the Pomodoro is something like a totem, is
Yes.
the icon of this method.
Exactly.
But actually, it's the very start. Because once you know how to deal with a single task, then the next challenge becomes how to deal with several tasks.
Yeah. All
Not
right.
one, but many. And this is the daily process. If you read the book is all about the daily process, how to organize the to do today, the activity inventory, etc. Then you have another challenge. Once you manage to do this, then you have another challenge, and the other challenge is, okay, now you know how to complete your daily goals. Okay, what about your weekly goals, your iteration goals? Yeah, this is another important thing, Diego, because we all have to reach multiple goals. And it is not like when I was young. When I was young, I was taught, how to reach several goals. Well, you pick the most important one, and you work on the most important one. Then you complete the most important one. Then once you complete the most important one, you go to the next one. It doesn't work nowadays.
It's
because
harder.
We have so many goals in parallel. So we have to work on these things at the same time. So for this, the weekly process, for instance, suggests a different approach, not to work in a goal-driven way, but in a time slot-driven way.
Mm.
Working in a time slot-driven way means that it's, of course, more advanced, but it means, for instance, to find similar tasks in maybe different goals. And so you don't work for the goals directly, but you work
on tasks.
Directly. Yeah, on the kind of tasks.
I like that. So you group the tasks, and you put the time slots of the Pomodoro to keep the flow going on the same kind of task.
Also to favor our mind.
All right.
Why? Because another common I think this is a common mistake. A common mistake is that we believe that we can be creative for 8 hours a day.
Yes.
Doesn't work like this. Again, the instruction manual of our mind says this doesn't work. So in order to be effective, you have to combine different kinds of activities. And this is exactly the time slot approach. Because maybe you have some tasks which are creative tasks, and you have some routine tasks, and you have some what I call slack tasks. I'm really a big fan of slack tasks. Slack tasks are something like all the things you don't want to do during the day. Something like, those things like You have to buy the batteries for your mouse, or you have
Yes.
to buy. Okay, you will never do that. But then maybe you fail your deadline because the mouse doesn't work.
Yes.
So we want to have a time slot, a daily time slot for these things. You see, or urgent stuff. You see, now the point is, as you can see, if we have so many different goals, well, maybe there are tasks belonging to different goals, but they share the same type. Okay, they share the same, and the same type of task means a similar way, so that our mind can approach these tasks in a similar way. So now we can combine these things in the best possible way for our mind.
I like that a lot because I use the Pomodoro a lot. And sometimes I'm thinking about my calendar. I'm a freak of the calendar. I audit my calendar every week, etc. And KPIs, OKR, all about that. I love that. But I use the Pomodoro, but I see myself switching the kind of task from one Pomodoro to another. And of course it's harder. Of course it's harder if I have another Pomodoro very similar another day of the week and I can make the trade-off. That
Exactly.
would be a great trade-off.
Exactly. For instance, I'm the worst one at switching context.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Okay.
So if you tell me now, for instance, write a paper or write an article, okay? And now the next Pomodoro, give an interview. No, this for me is a nightmare. This is something I can't do. So no, but if you give me a time slot where I have 2.5 hours where I do creative things, then my mind really wants to do something more reassuring. Let's put it this way.
Yes.
And also at the end of the day, this is another big advantage. At the end of the day, you see, if I worked 8 hours on this article, there is a chance that at the end of the day, I say, I've done nothing. This was a really miserable day. I'm the worst person in the world. You know this kind of things. Huh?
Yes.
Instead, if I combine different things, it is less probable that I get in this
Mood.
feeling, this mood here, because of course something maybe was successful, some other things were not successful, but my motivation is higher.
That's a great tip also. Yes, exactly. I mean, I was thinking about how the things you were saying about taking it from the daily to the weekly and then taking a look back at it. It comes to mind all the agile methodologies that are now. And I know you are into software, so I won't preach to the choir, but it does remember me these guys that have this methodology called sprint. This John Saraskin, and what you were saying about taking one kind of tasks and go through it in a all-in mode for a full day, for example. It looks like a sprint. It remembers a lot about the retrospectives and everything. So I think something that you came up with a lot of years ago, it's kind of the basis for the agile methods and
Maybe there's something better. There's something, of course, that is I think there's another thing. I think that if you bring me there to this to this side, there's another thing I would suggest. I know this is now, I'm going to say something which is really risky.
All right.
Okay. But for instance, I'm not a super fan, and now I know that I'm going to risk a lot.
Don't worry, we are between friends here.
I'm not a big fan of, for instance, to-do lists.
Okay.
So of anticipatory planning.
All right.
Especially when you start, especially for instance, in the core process, there's no anticipatory planning at all. In the core process is prescribed. You must not plan. And there's a reason for that. A lot of my the people who attend the course knows exactly this feeling. I want to know if your audience knows this feeling too. Okay.
All right.
So you start your day, and you say, okay, so I feel really well today. Okay. Let me see what I would like to have done at the end of the day. And you start writing, I want to do this and this and this. Chances are that at the end of the day, or even before, you realize you will never do this. You will never complete these things. And this is frustrating, highly frustrating. Okay. There's another approach. This is what we can call anticipatory planning. You see, you plan
In
before,
advance. Yes.
before starting work. In the core process, for instance, there's nothing like that. But the idea is you start working on a single task, on a single index card. We put this task on index cards. If you have interruptions, you write these interruptions. So these are other tasks on the unplanned card. And every time you start a new Pomodoro, you wonder, what do you want to do? You want to do this or that? And when you complete one task, at that moment, you choose the next one. This is adaptive planning. This is a form of adaptive planning. I plan while I am delivering results.
But it is related to one single project, or it can be whatever.
It can be whatever.
All
when
right.
in the core process, it is for everything.
All right.
But now, if you put this in the time slot, for instance, in the time slot idea, then in that time slot, you have something like a list. You have a backlog of activities. But you, in the adaptive planning idea, you choose the next activity once you complete the one before.
All right.
You don't need to plan. Oh, I'm saying that why I say I'm risking a lot, because of course I wrote something where you have a to-do list. This is perfectly okay. But this depends on the kind of work that you have to do. If you are a super creative person, then an adaptive planning approach might be more effective.
Agreed.
If you are instead someone who has a routine to develop, and then the anticipatory planning approach is more helpful.
Or if you have a deadline to complete.
I tend to disagree, because it depends. Also, in that case, if the deadline is related to a creative product, or if I have a deadline and I have to perform the same activity as a routine, the to-do list is still the best approach.
All right.
If I have to deliver a book, then in that case I would prefer the adaptive planning.
All right. Got it. I love it.
But I see that a lot of people then they start appreciating this idea, which of course is full of uncertainty.
Yes.
Right. This is super risky. If you go to a manager and you say, you know what, you have to plan ahead. What?
I'm about to ask you about that, but I see that I jump into them. Well, my own curiosity, but I want to ask you about maybe with these downsides over there. You know, if there are downsides to Pomodoro, how does the Pomodoro change your life? And maybe we can take 5 minutes to tell us about yourself, because.
What do you mean exactly? Because it changed my life, maybe in several different ways.
Yeah, so positive and maybe not so positive ways. And maybe this can be the trigger to tell us a little bit about yourself, Cirillo.
Okay, the most positive aspect was, I remember when I started this thing, it would be impossible for me to go, for instance, in front of a CEO of a bank and say, okay, let's set a timer, let's say 25-minute Pomodoro, and let's start working. That would be really impossible. Now I can do this. They even say, why don't you, how many Pomodoros do you do the thing? Okay, perfect.
Amazing, yes.
So this was remarkable, I think. No, I think this is as far as I'm concerned, I received a lot of love from the Pomodoro, because as you might remember, the Pomodoro was also free. Initially was a free PDF, and but also now there are a lot of people who write me, and I'm really happy when I read, for instance, some people with families, etc. They manage to study, for instance, to be successful at the university, or to manage to reach several different goals during the COVID. For instance, we worked a lot with the attendant of the courses to come up with a strategy to deal with the COVID.
Nice.
And we defined a number of things to do in order to be more effective. Because that was a really hard situation. Imagine a family with five
Yes.
people in the same apartment. So we had to create a process for that. Okay, we have to create a process for that. I think this is the feedback I receive is really the aspect that I like the most.
I love it.
As you know, I work as a software. I have these two different.
Yeah, tell us about that. Tell us about what do you do and.
Well, on one side, of course, I mentor people on to improve their productivity, and I have a lot of fun doing that. A lot of fun because these are my problems. I'm the worst one here. So this is a technique that doesn't start from someone like a professor. So I was the worst one there, and I had to come up with a solution to my problem somehow. And then apparently this solution works for the other people, which actually confirmed that I was the worst one. On the other side, my passion has always been to develop software, and so I'm a software designer. And also there, it's really funny, I think, because sometimes I'm hired as a software designer, so as a senior software designer, I get to a company or to improve their process. I get to the company, and then they ask, why are you here? Are you going to teach us the pomodoro technique here? And I know this is not my thing. This has been a big problem for me.
I can imagine. You know, I'm gonna tell you a story there. I'm just this year or a couple of 2 or 3 years ago, one big soccer player of Mexico is the same name as mine. So I cannot Google myself anymore. And people sometimes think when I give my conference, etc., oh, I thought it was the football player that was coming. I said, no, it's just me. I'm sorry.
This is that nice. But I think you can get a lot of advantages in that case. If you make reservation, etc., I think they will.
That's true. That's true. People don't know if I make a reservation at a restaurant, who is this guy coming? Maybe it's the football player. So yeah, I can relate.
You can go to these restaurants only once, but
exactly in the end, that's true. But yeah, I can understand that part of you that gets people a little bit confused about what you're gonna help them with. All right.
Yeah. This has happened several times, and then of course we start working, and so they understand that the point is different.
Of course.
But again, I have to say, I'm very honest here. I have to say that this is a tool I found, but it really helped me. And of course, when you have, this is another thing that probably is interesting to say. The Pomodoro technique is a method, it's a technique, but it's not something that you learn how to solve the problem with time. If you want just 1 minute to be, I don't know if we have time, but just to be serious for 1 second. So what is the problem we have with time? Problem we have with time, many people think, oh, procrastination is procrastination is not the problem we have with time. The problem, this is the effect of the problem we have with time. The problem we have with time is that time is a limited resource, and we don't know how to deal with a limited resource. And this is the problem. So we have to get into, I mean, if we have this kind of problem, maybe there are people, they don't have this problem. But if we have this kind of problem, of course, you see, deadlines increase this problem, no, because you have even less. So this is the reason why we have to learn how to deal with this human limit. This is a limit that human beings have.
Yes.
So the Pomodoro technique will not teach you how to create time, how to slow down time. So this is not, I wish someone can learn how to do this. I can't teach you how to do these things. But so the technique is instead a way to learn how to live with this human limit. Okay, how to accept this human limit. You see, when I say I see Dino, why I see Dino? Because there's a moment in our mind where our mind realizes it cannot control time, and this is the moment where Dino appears, when we get scared.
Yes.
So that's the reason why we need a way, a technique, a process. You see, I repeat the term process, but an aware process to learn how to deal with this event.
I like
And
that.
again, and this is the way we transform time into an ally. Again, time is not an enemy, it's not a friend. Everything happens in our mind. Okay. So this is the kind of training.
I love it. And just jumping into the training part, and you mentioned something earlier about risking, right? And being a little bit contrarian, because we live in a world where we work, most of us, in companies. We have 9 to 5 jobs, and we have, as you said, a lot of priorities, because now everything is a priority. And we as leaders, we need to manage projects, and as collaborators, we need to execute projects. And you said something like, if you go to a manager and say, no, don't plan on everything. But and I really love that, because I used to be, I am contrarian in some ways of how we do the things today in the workplace. But you have this section in the book that I'm pretty sure a lot of people listening to you will not read it, but at least they will hear it from you, because I'm going to ask you, how can we use this in the workplace with teams? Because you have this section in the book about teams and how to bring that to the workplace. If you can take us through a journey of 3 to 4 5 minutes on that, that would be great also.
Okay, first, let me be a little rebel.
All right,
So
please.
first, how not to use this in teams. The first thing is the Pomodoro technique should not be imposed to anyone.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
There's a, of there are two different ways of considering the Pomodoro technique. There's a common wrong question I receive. Let's see, Diego, if you get my point, huh? And then I go to your
yes, please
question.
Don't worry.
The common question, the common not correct question is, how many pomodoros should I complete in a day?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a wrong question. Why this is wrong? Of course, any question is acceptable, but why this is a wrong question? So why I consider that a wrong question? Because I'm not interested in how many pomodoros you complete. I don't want you to force yourself to complete pomodoros. This is exactly the opposite of what I want. What you are interested in is in how many ways and how many times you were able to recognize Dino and manage to develop a conversation with Dino and deal with your interruptions. With the people who attend my courses, these are the stories I'm interested in. Tell me a story where you managed to recognize Dino, which is not easy, and how you managed to deal your interruption. Usually there are interruptions, and get back to work. These are
like the thing I told you about writing down distractions, for example.
Or like this. Usually these things are really deep, so it's not to overcome these moments. For instance, it's really difficult to get to a point where someone stops and decides not to, under this pressure of time, not to write the next paragraph, but to go back to what they have done. It could be a software process, a software program, whatever it is, and spend time improving that thing instead of adding things. In a primitive approach, adding things seems to be the right thing to do to get to the conclusion. Okay, so my first point is nobody should actually impose this technique to anybody. The team can actually decide to use this technique, and I have so many teams that decided to use that. These techniques actually became viral because of teams, thanks to teams. I taught of the first team how to apply this technique only because I saw they had the same problem I had. They liked that, and then they shared this with other people, and this is the way the technique went viral. And I think it's a really common to find this technique applied in especially IT companies, but all sorts of companies nowadays.
Yeah. So how does a team works around that? Yeah.
When they work together, for instance, when there can be also one person who works with the phone. and this is okay, because this is actually later I have to tell you a little story.
All right. All right.
But usually when they work together, there's another thing that team can do, and can also work for. This is really common in software development. They work in pairs.
All right.
Okay, so they work two people on the same computer, at the same computer, and working on the same task. This is really typical in software engineering. I think more typical than in other fields. But for instance, when they do this, they can use one pomodoro. So usually we use one pomodoro per task. Another thing that we do is we swap the pair. So for instance, every pomodoro, when the team is really effective, not immediately, but every pomodoro, for instance, one of these two members of the pair can actually switch. And this is a way to favor a common knowledge about the software system, or the problem, or this kind of thing. We can organize several different things. In several companies, also design companies, where we need creative ideas, or engineering companies, one thing that we often do is the so-called Pomodoro hackathon. So we have a problem. We want the whole, let's say, all the designers, maybe usually they have 30 designers, 40 designers, to try to find a solution to a problem which seems to be really difficult. So they sit down in the same room. They have a number of pomodoros. So it's time boxed in this case, no more than 4 pomodoros. And also in that case, after 2 pomodoros, they can switch.
Okay.
You see, also in this case, the relational approach, the fact that they can talk to each other and they share the information, and this is really effective when we work with teams. I'm not saying that everybody has to do this, but this is something that is remarkable. I remember these things with a lot of I don't know. I'm really proud of these situations, because they really managed to solve problems that appear not to be easy to solve.
Like it.
These are instead I wanted to tell you a little story.
Yes.
Something that happened. So, because I think usually maybe there's a person who starts, maybe in an office, and the other people, they don't even know what the Pomodoro is. And this happened to a manager. I cannot tell you the company, but it's a big company. And she was particularly effective, and she started learning the technique. And then I received the best feedback I could receive.
All right.
Because she once came to me and said, what my colleagues said? They say that they don't understand how I can be more effective and more lazy at the same time. And this is the best. This is the best compliment I can get. You understand why?
Yes.
Lazier. Yes. Why lazier? Because of course she took a lot of breaks, and people, you have to understand something. After 4 pomodoros, the break is supposed to be 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, longer. Yes.
It's a long break. So of course, imagine the colleagues of this manager, and they saw this person doing nothing for 30 minutes every 2 hours, and at the same time outperforming them, so being more effective than the other people.
That's amazing story.
That's super. That's super. And of course, when this happens, also the other people want to understand what happens. And I like this. This. I prefer this kind of stories than the story where someone says, no, from now on, everybody
uses the Pomodoro.
100 pomodoros and start. This
I like it.
Work. Instead, if there's one and one manages to perform really well, then also, of course, also the other people, they want to learn how. And this is, of course, if we you see, Diego, this is very important. We have to be interested in how many times you manage to deal with Dino, not how many pomodoros you complete.
All right.
This is not a competition. Okay, we become really productive when we manage to deal with the limit of time.
Yeah, I liked it, because I think it's not about time management. Sometimes it's about distraction management or energy management, or
it is time management. It is actually, this is another interesting point. A lot of people think that time management are techniques who make you save time. That's not correct. time management techniques are time management where you are more productive
in the time you have,
thanks to a strategy, thanks to the way you deal with time, thanks to the strategy you apply to time. There are at least two different alternatives. You can become more productive because you have a decision-making strategy, or you can be more productive because you have a information logistic strategy. So the way to be productive is, number one, information logistic, the way you organize your information so that when you need the information, you have everything one click away.
Yes.
Decision making is another pillar of productivity, or the way you organize time.
All right.
The way you deal with time, in my opinion, is the way you deal with Dino.
All right. Got it. Love it. So we're near to our end of this great conversation, Francesco. And I have two more questions for you. And one is, how can we use the Pomodoro? And I think you started using it for learning. You said something about university. How can we use it to learn nowadays? How do you use it to learn nowadays? If you can relate the Pomodoro with learning in a little bit deeper way, that will be amazing.
Well, my first answer is one Pomodoro at a time.
Okay.
This is actually my real answer. So if you want to learn something, really, one Pomodoro is a really interesting unit, because even if everything goes bad, you wasted 25 minutes. It's nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
So the point is to learn to be aware for those 25 minutes. And then, of course, you see, when you apply this adaptive planning, you can find, for instance, new objectives from your learning. Personally, when I have to learn something, I always write what I expect before. And then I try to find the things I expect in the text. So sometimes I do something like a flash reading of the chapter of the book or whatever it is. And then when I realize there's something else, okay, then I adjust my goals, my expectation.
I like it.
And then, but again, the most important thing is to be aware. So this is the reason why I say one Pomodoro at a time. One Pomodoro, you take the break, then you start again. You think, okay, so what I'm looking for here. So you want to increase the level of awareness, more than reading pages and pages.
I really like that. So the 5 minutes are to increase your level of awareness, to talk to your mind, to be kind to your mind. That's a different way to put it. That just to relax, because it's not just a break. It's a break in disguise. It's a camouflage. Yeah, I love it.
I'm not saying anything new. It's all written in the instruction manual of our mind. Okay?
Yes.
but the point is, yes, what you see, we have a sense of guilty. We're a sense of guilty when we say, oh, we do nothing for. But if we start thinking that in this 5 minutes, in the background, something really magical happens, and we can favor this process, and this is a biological process, then we have to do nothing in this break. Oh, and I'm really, really clear here. You don't want to cheat in those breaks. Cheating means taking a look at your email, because if you do this, that process, you get in the way. No, this process is an obstacle to that process. So if you really want to favor that process, you have to do nothing. You can drink some water, but not even load the dishwasher. Okay, there's always the risk that something else comes up to your mind, etc. So you want to be a perfect engineer of your mind, then do nothing in those breaks.
That's amazing. That's a very, very insightful thing, because a lot of the literature over there is you can take a social media break. Maybe that applies. I don't know, but you can do another task in those 5 minutes. And it's not like that. All right.
No. All right. Instead, you can take all these other activities, the social media, etc., and turn them into a service Pomodoro.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So, for instance, the best time for these things is after lunch. After lunch is statistically speaking, the least productive moment of the day. Put the things that you know, all these kind of things which are simple, not then of course, if you are a social media manager, no.
Yeah, of
But
course. No, no, no. Yes, of course.
but if this is something you have to send some messages, etc., so this is a good way to deal with these things.
I love it. I really love it. I really enjoy this conversation, Francesco. Thank you very much. Where can we find you? Where can we find your book? Please tell us all about that.
You can go to my website and you find everything. So francescocirillo.com, and then you find everything.
All right. And we can follow you on LinkedIn and Twitter mainly, right?
Of course.
And in Berlin, if you are around there, guys.
If you're around here, we're ready for a coffee or a tea or something.
That will be amazing. That will be amazing. And Francesco, if there's anything that you want to say or goodbye.
I would like to thank everyone, all your audience. I'm really interested in getting some feedback from them. So, Diego, if you receive some feedback and you want to send it to me, I would be more than happy to take a look at that.
I will do for sure. I will do for sure. And I'm really hoping this is the first of many times we get together to talk about more about time management, learning, and stuff. So, Francesco, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And guys, remember, never forget to learn, dare to learn, and let's go for the next chapter and next pomodoro of our lives. Thank you.